There's this tipping point where the incumbents have to choose between slow, grinding extinction and compromise with the disruptors. We may have just reached that point between TradFi and crypto. Okay. We have quite a week coming up for us, I think. I think this is gonna be a very interesting week. Let's see, who have we got? Who have we got here? We've got Neo Chad. Yes, Neo Chad. I think you were first. Eric Williams, thank you for joining. Pucky Hawk, thank you for joining. Blue Mammal, good to see you. JGS 5763, thanks for joining. Sub-Zero, thanks for joining. Get Me Hops, thanks for being here. At Rulo13, good to see you. Thanks for joining. James Syracuse, thanks for being here. Let's see, Cardano Shepherd. Yep, I agree. Good week incoming. This is going to be interesting. This is going to be very interesting. SD8BD7RK2I, thank you for joining. Thank you for joining. Exposer 342. That name could mean a lot of different things. I like it though. What's up? Thank you for joining. So I think we have a very interesting week coming up, especially given something that happened today. This thumbnail is about something that just happened today, but it was kind of foreshadowed by an interview that that was given late last week by somebody we know. So let's go directly to that interview. And then I think once you start hearing this, you might be able to guess what this is about. You might also be able to guess what this is about just by who that kind of looks like. So this is the interview I'm talking about. This is Tom Lee and Anthony Pompliano. So this is a Pomp interview of Tom Lee. We're familiar with both these guys. Pomp is around, he's been around for the last couple of cycles. We know him. Tom Lee has been a fixture in the crypto space for quite a while. So we know both these guys. And, they're both, always doing things like this. This is not anything new to see these two in an interview across from each other. But what Tom Lee said, I think, is worth thinking about. So listen to this. Tom Lee in this interview said, Tether only has 150 employees who've been there longer than 12 months. And he said that might be slightly out of date, but it's some very small number of employees. He remembered it being 150 last time he looked. So they've got 150 employees, tenured employees. Those are employees who've been around like a year or longer. But Tether is worth 500 billion. So if we think about the fraction there, the value of the company per employee, you're looking at a value of this company of 3.3 billion per employee, according to Tom Lee, which is incredible. So to compare that, we have to think about TradFi. So that value is second only to JP Morgan, which is worth 869 billion, according to Tom Lee. The thing is, JP Morgan has 313,000 employees, right? So Tether is second only to JP Morgan. Tether has 150 employees. JP Morgan has 313,000 employees. That's a ratio of 2.8 million per employee. Tom Lee says, Tether is twice as valuable as Goldman Sachs right now and making more money than every bank in the world. So this is really interesting because one thing we know about TradFi is all they care about is making money. All they care about are the dollars, and they'll do whatever the regulators will let them do, right? Now, all of a sudden, we're in this period where the regulators are going to let a whole spectrum of different types of institutions do things in crypto. So this could all lead us to say that maybe crypto is going to eat TradFi. Is crypto going to eat TradFi if Tether is that much more valuable than all of the banks except for JP Morgan, and the efficiency of a crypto organization like Tether is so much greater than the biggest bank, JP Morgan? Again, $3.3 billion per employee versus 2.8 million with an M per employee for JP Morgan. So it's a much more efficient way to pursue finance, right? So a lot of people would see those kind of numbers and say, obviously, crypto is going to eat TradFi, which is what we've been saying since the start of crypto, since the very start of crypto, since everybody got into Bitcoin way back in the day. After everybody read the Satoshi white paper, the thing we said was this could work. And if it does, it's going to eat TradFi. We didn't even call it TradFi then. We just said it's going to eat Wall Street, right? But here's what I think is actually going to happen. So TradFi still has all the users, all the mainstream normal users. All the grandmas are not using crypto yet. They do have bank accounts largely. So you've got this tipping point between disruptors and incumbents, right? Pre-ante status quo, you've sort of got all of TradFi doing their thing, and they control all of finance. They are the only game. Their rails are the only rails. Then along comes crypto, and all of a sudden they realize, oh, we're doing things the very old-fashioned way, and it's exponentially less profitable the way we're doing it. But they have all the users. They have all the mainstream users. Obviously, crypto is already huge given those numbers we just talked about, but all the mainstream users, the users we want to expand into in crypto, those users are all still using the TradFi rails. So there's a bit of a dance going on here, a bit of a negotiation, right? TradFi is going to want to cash in on this new, very, very highly efficient, very, very profitable way to do finance. Crypto is going to want to expand its products into all those mainstream users that the JP Morgan Chases of the world still control. So what happens? What happens is basically, I think, what happened today. So when I saw this interview, the first thing I thought was, what's going to happen is TradFi is going to end up being the middleman, and they're just going to be sort of middlemaning crypto products to all of their users. So what actually happened today? This is what happened today. Payments processor Zelle to allow crypto stablecoins for international transactions. So what is Zelle? Most of you probably already know. A lot of you probably use banking arrangements that make Zelle available to you right inside, in crypto, we'd call it the wallet, but right inside the web interface of whatever bank you're using. So what is Zelle? Who owns Zelle? Zelle is actually owned by this entity, which is an LLC, Early Warning Services. The CFPB tells us Early Warning Services is actually co-owned by this consortium of big banks, including Bank of America, Capital One, JP Morgan Chase, PNC Bank, Truist, US Bank, and Wells Fargo. So a bunch of the biggest banks in North America, at least, they're all in on Zelle. And I think they intended for Zelle to sort of head off crypto. I think they saw what people were doing with crypto and they were like, oh, we can beat crypto. We can head off crypto by providing Zelle. So what is actually happening is Zelle is now going to offer stable coins for international transactions. And here's the way the Wall Street Journal is characterizing this. Big banks enter stablecoin era by taking Zelle international. The move could help big bank owners of payment products head off cryptocurrency competition. This is the compromise. This is the surrender, right? TradFi would have loved if they could have just frozen us out, right? If crypto, Jamie Dimon, famously not in love with crypto, the head of JP Morgan Chase, he would have loved it if crypto had just been outlawed. That didn't happen, right? You can argue it could have happened if we'd gotten a different result in the last election, if a different administration had ended up in the White House. But that's not what happened. We got a very crypto-friendly, the most crypto-friendly White House administration we possibly could have gotten. So what happens is this. They have to compromise. They have to surrender. They have to surrender something. The rails they have are going to have to start accommodating crypto products because they've got the users, but their old-fashioned way of approaching finance is so much less efficient. We know from those numbers, so much less efficient. If they don't surrender part of their business, if they don't compromise, if they don't accept crypto is going to be a part of their business, they would get eaten by TradFi. So what we're seeing right now is a bit of a surrender of TradFi to crypto. So let's see what got a few comments here. Let's see what people are saying. Good morning, Dr. SJ Lazar. Good morning. Doing well. Hope you're doing well as well. Cardano. I'm so happy for these daily videos. Oh yeah, it's great. It's great to be doing the daily videos. I'm so glad I'm out of the fiat mines and able to do them. Why November 7th? What's the November 7th reference? Tell me about November 7th. Stuart Lovell says insurance broker gone, government workers gone, bank workers gone, financial advisors gone. Yeah, I think over the next decade we're going to see a lot of that due to a little 2-letter acronym. So, which is free TOEF. That is crazy. I agree. It is crazy. It's crazy. I never thought. I've complained about this for years. Kind of like jokingly, people would ask me to send them a payment via Zelle for ridiculous odds and ends, ridiculous weird stuff. And I would complain every single time that Zelle, at first it was PayPal. I would complain that PayPal didn't include crypto, and then PayPal embraced crypto. Then I would complain that Zelle didn't include crypto. Now Zelle is embracing crypto. All of these traditional rails by which finance and transactions were done, they're all surrendering to crypto. The dominoes are falling one by one. Stuart Lovell says, real estate agents gone, accountants gone. Yeah, we're gonna see a lot of this. Let's see. You could argue that without Jamie Dimon, so I think you're saying J.P. Morgan Chase, which would be Jamie Dimon making his statements, it would not have become important. Yeah, I mean that was part of the narrative. Part of the narrative. Oh, okay. Okay. That was a reference. The November 7th thing was a reference to something you said, Pucky Hawk. Okay, great. Mission Zambia, thank you for joining. Appreciate it. Thank you for joining. Yeah, I mean, this is the problem. Smart contracts are going to take out so many middlemen careers. I can't wait. Yeah, all we need to do is onboard the mainstream users to crypto, and then slowly we edge out the middlemen with software. I mean, this is like disintermediation of middlemen by software is something tech's been doing, for decades now. And I think TradFi understands that risk, and there's nothing they can do about it, right? It's like all they can do right now is middleman crypto products because they still have all the users. But once the users get used to crypto, we can then disintermediate TradFi with software and automation. So, Ed, thank you for joining. Fly over me. Now we have to get rid of the taxes on crypto for spending it. Yeah, we need that de minimis exemption. I think it's, yeah, we need it. We need it, whatever we want to call it. We need an exception from having to calculate gains on de minimis expenditures. So when you go to, if people don't know what we're talking about, when you go back in the day, you could buy coffee with crypto and it was kind of a normal thing. Now, as it stands right now, if you go to buy coffee with crypto, technically you would have to calculate your gains on that, which means nobody's going to buy coffee with crypto or really do any other day-to-day things with it. So we do need that. So this is huge. This all just went down this weekend. This is all stuff that people really haven't absorbed. This news hit maybe Friday, but I didn't really see people talking about it. I think this week, a lot of people are going to be talking about it. I saw people sort of discussing it for the first time today, but this is actually really huge. This is the grandmas being able to access crypto inside the JP Morgan Chase checking account front end. This is pretty huge. Okay. Old man OZ65. What does an A to join a Chainlink and XRP and a major real estate company to go from online house for sale, rent through conveyancing, identification, bank transfers, land title, etc. So this is a really obviously real estate. Okay. This could be its own video, but real estate is highly regulated by the states. So you've got a huge amount of state regulation, and it's slightly different in almost every single state. So every state has sort of their own contract that is widely used, right? In a lot of states, there's some kind of a real estate purchase agreement of some type. They all have, various names, but, there will be like one type of agreement. And in many states, a very large number of the agents and brokers in that state will be using that same agreement. And they're different in different states, which is not that big of a problem for crypto, because we could easily create smart contracts that take care of all the earnest money and anything else that goes into escrow, and have that stuff do whatever the contract needs to do on chain. We can do all that part. One of the bigger problems is that all of the title is in the counties, and it is like the oldest, most old-fashioned system. The whole nexus between mortgage and title and the counties, it's all as old-fashioned as it could get, and it's very hard to get them to embrace a change to that system because it's so ingrained in the fabric of real estate. But it's going to happen. It is going to happen. Exactly what you're suggesting is going to happen. Okay. Yep, exactly. Those deeds need to be on chain. And this is like one of the primary, this is one of the first use cases for one of the first RWA real world asset use cases people think about. And this is something that this has been like the primary thing. As soon as I understood what smart contracts were, as soon as everybody understood what smart contracts really were, like one of the first use cases was, let's just do real estate transactions on chain. Let's have title be on chain. Let's just do everything on chain. And there's a lot of resistance. I'll just put it this way. There's a lot of friction there. There's a lot of friction. So, but it's going to happen. It's going to happen eventually. Okay, a little segue. So what else is happening this week? This is going to be a very interesting week, not just because of this. This is actually a much bigger deal than I think most people will give it credit for, but there are some other things happening. One of the biggest things that's going to gain the most attention is this. The FOMC meeting. This is the actual FOMC calendar on the Federal Reserve website. And you can see we already had this one, September 16th and 17th. Next up is this week, 28th and 29th. So what we're going to see is we're going to see the owl get up on a Wednesday. I think it's 2:30 p.m. Eastern. The owl's going to get up on a Wednesday and he's going to do his thing. And, the consensus opinion is what is expressed right here. And that is that we have a 96.7% chance. This is CME FedWatch, 96.7% chance of a 25 basis point reduction in the federal funds rate. So that means a 0.25% cut. So everybody agrees. And what is CME FedWatch saying for the next meeting for December? Looks like that window's not popping up right now, but it's exactly the same. It's a very high. It's like 95% chance. Let's see if we can get it to, there we go. 95.8% chance of another 25 basis point cut. So everybody's sort of in agreement what's going to happen here. So we're going to see that on Wednesday. We're probably, according to CME FedWatch and the commonly accepted wisdom, we're going to see the same thing on the 10th of December. No meeting in November, no FOMC meeting in November, but December, we're going to see the same thing. So everybody's kind of pricing all of that in. So Heinous Haggis, which is a pretty funny, pretty hilarious username, says de minimis exemption won't really work for adoption because above the set amount, it will still be taxed, thus maintaining the need for accounting for every transaction to prove disposal. That's possible. I mean, obviously there are aggregation problems. If there's a de minimis exception, then you could just do 1 million transactions. But we have that already for foreign currencies. So we do it with foreign currencies when you're on vacation. So we do have a system, we do have a precedent where this is already working. Nobody pays taxes when they change into euros. If they travel from the US to the EU and they're spending in euros, nobody's paying taxes on those small everyday transactions. Granted, if you are figuring out some way to stay just under the caps and you're doing 1 million transactions and it's actually in the aggregate a huge amount, yeah, you could that could get reclassified as non-de minimis transaction. So I think that all that's going to happen. It needs to be reclassified from a property to a currency and or a new asset class altogether. Yeah, so this was the direction we were going in crypto back in the day. And then the IRS issued guidance basically saying, nope, crypto is not a currency. It is just personal property, which is what, led to us not fitting into the de minimis exemption originally. So I don't think getting it reclassified as currency is probably a lot harder than just getting a de minimis exception. So we'll see how that turns out. Senator Lummis, if she has her way, we would get it, obviously, but it seems like nothing's certain in Congress right now. So this is what everybody's looking forward to. So I don't think this is the most important thing we can hear from the FOMC. We already know what this is going to be, kind of both in October and in December. But the most important thing we hear from the FOMC on Wednesday, when the owl gets up there, is probably going to be this. So if you watch this channel when Powell did his Philadelphia speech, one of the biggest headline items was that he said they might have reason to stop quantitative tightening in the next couple of months, kind of. He said, in many more words, this is basically what he said. But expectations for this happening sooner than a couple of months have accelerated since he gave that speech. So here they say the FOMC, the policy setting arm of the Federal Reserve, is poised to cut short-term interest rates by another quarter point next week. And this is KPMG, and announce an end to reductions in its balance sheet, known as quantitative tightening, or QT. Chairman Powell laid out the Fed's plans to end QT at a speech on October 14th. I believe that was a Philadelphia speech. The decision will come with at least one dissent from newly appointed Governor Stephen Miron, who is on leave from his position in the White House. So not only are people expecting this 25 basis point cut, they're also expecting an announcement of the end of QT. Why is this so important? Because we have been under the iron fist of quantitative tightening since clear back here in 2022. We've talked about this before on this channel, even recently, but the really good times in crypto tend to happen under quantitative easing, right? Certainly not this kind of steep quantitative tightening. When the Fed balance sheet is contracting this hard, you tend not to have great times in crypto. But when things are going great, like this giant wall right here of quantitative easing, this was during COVID. So everybody is going to have high hopes. Now that everybody is expecting that there's going to be some kind of announcement of a cessation of quantitative tightening, everybody is going to be relieved and also starting to expect quantitative easing. But we'll see what actually happens. Okay. Old Man Oz says, we only have 6 states in Australia. We have 3 or 4 major real estate agents. Does initial adoption have to be in the USA? It already has a large presence in Africa. Why not use other countries as a proof of concept? I would love it. Man. I will be the first one jumping up and cheering for Australia. If Australia can throw, I think like probably the hardest part, I don't know about the Australian real estate system, but the hardest part in the US is definitely sort of getting the counties to agree, because the problem is we've got 50 states and these states have 1 million counties, many of them, not literally 1 million, but they have many counties, some of them. So you'd be dealing with all these individual counties, and these can be these very old-fashioned bureaucratic organizations. This is, aside from municipalities like cities and towns, this is one of the smallest governmental subunits you could be dealing with, and they're very old-fashioned. So if Australia could do it first, I'll be the first one to jump up and cheer, because if Australia can do it, it's going to be so much more efficient than the way it's done in the US. I'll take anywhere. I'll take Australia, EU, Japan, South Korea, Taiwan, anywhere. If somebody can do it first, I think if anybody does it as a proof of concept, it'll be so much more efficient than the way we currently do it in the US. It'll just be one of those domino events where people see how well it works, and then everybody will just start moving towards adopting it. So please do. Please do. If you can make that happen in Australia, please do it. Sir Tomalat says, if you remove the tax from crypto disposable usage, what is the incentive for government to adopt and allow crypto without the increase of the tax base, as the crypto would cannibalize their local dollar? So, I mean, it's like we were talking about before. We have de minimis exception for small amounts of Forex, right? If you go on vacation from the US to the EU, there is the de minimis exception. So you don't have to calculate your gain on, $5 worth of USD for euro, right? Everybody understands that that's the administrative burden there would make it very difficult to go on vacation. So we have it there. But if you are a giant Forex trader, it doesn't meet the de minimis exception. So they still get to tax that. So it doesn't really, you can still have the tax base. It is a policy decision about what your tax base is going to be. What types of transactions are going to be included in your tax base. It's that kind of policy decision, but you can make the decision so that you still have a large cap tax base for all kinds of non-de minimis crypto transactions. And we know this works because we do it. We do it with foreign exchange like that. Okay, this is not the only thing going on. To me, this is the most important thing that could happen this week. But the thing that will probably get the most mainstream media headlines will be this. So Scott Bessent went on the news and he talked about, so you probably know, a lot of the executive branch, the executives in the executive branch right now are in Malaysia. You saw Trump negotiating, at least a temporary sort of truce between Thailand and Cambodia over their border, we'll call them battles. I'll just go ahead and say they're battles because soldiers have died. So there's at least a temporary truce over these skirmishes. But importantly, for our purposes, Scott Bessent has been meeting with his counterparts. Scott Bessent, head of the U.S. Treasury, has been meeting with his CCP counterparts. And what they've done, apparently, what at least we're being led to believe happened, is they basically negotiated a deal with China over the tariffs. So the language coming out is sort of like, hey, we've already worked out what's going to happen with TikTok, what's going to happen with rare earths, what's going to happen with soybeans. We're not going to have 100% tariffs. So things are sounding pretty good. And apparently what's supposed to happen is Xi and Trump are going to get together Thursday morning, South Korea time. So this is my understanding. Somebody let me know if I've got this wrong, but I believe this is going to happen Thursday morning, South Korea time. So in the West, that'll be like late Wednesday, which is really interesting because the owl is going to do his thing up at the podium on Wednesday midday in the West. And then later on that night, they've got the opportunity to seal the deal with Xi. And it sounds like they have already negotiated this deal. All the articles are talking about the soybean purchases being taken care of, the rare earth minerals being taken care of, TikTok being taken care of. Obviously, these are just like the details that mainstream media likes to focus on. And there's like a billion other things. All these fine-grained details are going into these deals, and those are the things in the aggregate that really, really matter. But these are the big headline items. And Bessent's kind of indicating they've already kind of figured out how to handle all that. And Trump and Xi just need to get together, seal the deal, hug it out, and then they can announce this possibly Wednesday night. Everybody's going to wake up on Thursday. If they're able to seal the deal, everybody wakes up on Thursday, and it's like, we just got a 25 basis point rate cut. We may have just gotten an announcement of a cessation of quantitative tightening. And then we got a deal between China and the US on trade. And there's also some, people are also saying we're going to have South Korea and Japan buttoned up. This could be really good for the entire global economy. If we can sort of straighten out kind of resolve these outstanding issues that have sort of got everybody frozen. Everybody's kind of waiting, holding their breath, just sort of waiting for this to resolve. Everybody knows these things are all going to resolve, and you could argue that this is all already priced in, but when it actually happens, this is going to resolve a lot of uncertainty for the markets. Okay. Youth promo 6891. Can you speak on what you believe would happen with the banks and stablecoin rivalries? I know stablecoins win, but at enormous cost in lobbying. What are your thoughts on this? So I think the most dangerous hurdle for us in crypto was regulation. The most dangerous thing was that we got a White House administration and a legislative branch. Those two together, if we got a legislative branch and a White House administration that hated crypto, if it was like the anti-crypto army, and the dragon was still appointing all the domestic economic policy people, then that would have been the biggest like existential threat to crypto in generally, but especially on this front. What we've got now is we've got good legislation that's already gone through the House, both on stable coins and on market structure. So I think it really is this dance between TradFi and crypto, because TradFi understands we have this exponential profitability revenue advantage. What they have are the users. I mean, granted, from those numbers, we know crypto has a lot of users in terms of, dollar volume. We have a lot of users too, because Tether is destroying, but they've got all the mainstream users. So it's going to be this, because we reached that tipping point where they have to either suffer slow, crushing extinction as we outcompete them, or they compromise and accept our products, our assets on their rails. What they decided was to accept our products on their rails. They had no other choice. It's Wall Street. They want to make money. They want to make money. And that's the only way forward to make money. If they just tried to be Zelle, USD only, no crypto assets, no stable coins, we would just outcompete them so hard. How do we know that? Because we already are. Tom Lee's numbers, if those are accurate, and I haven't double checked them, but if those are accurate numbers, it's like, it's going to be so obvious to everybody at the top of those institutions that they must compromise. And it looks like that's what's happening. Joe Davidson, thank you for joining. Appreciate it. The White House being pro-crypto is wildly bullish for how low the price has been. Trump said he prepared for this coming week. So let's see what happens. Yeah, I mean, it's it's like for Trump, I think he's going to be liking what's happening during this Asia tour of his, because he can, one of his big things is resolving international conflicts. So he can, make a lot of press about the end of the Thailand-Cambodia border skirmishes, although I'm highly skeptical that that'll really be the end. That might not be the real end, but it's going to make for good press. Then he turns around, he goes to Korea, meets with Xi after Besant and his counterparts have already been meeting in Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia. He can then go to Korea, seal that deal. And it's like, one of the biggest outstanding things in his term so far. Like, when are you going to button up the China deal? What about TikTok? What about rare earths? What about soybeans? And if he can button all that up this week, call himself, a politician of peace because of the Thailand-Cambodia deal, I think he's going to be pretty happy. And the mainstream press, to whatever extent they're, on his side, they're going to make, a lot of hay out of that, I think. Adam Olson, do you think more exchanges will follow Kraken and distribute Night? It's so hard to tell because they don't want to. From the start of airdrops, it's been obvious that part of it is like, it's been obvious that the centralized exchanges love to grab those airdrops instead of giving them to the users. And part of it is an asymmetric information problem. There's an asymmetry of information because a lot of the central exchange users don't even know. They don't even know they're eligible for airdrops like this. Like they may have never heard of the Night token or Midnight or even know this is going on. They might have bought Cardano a long time ago. They keep it on Coinbase, and once a quarter they check the price or something. So there's a lot of users out there like that. Like I even know people right now, when close friends, when I run into them, they ask me how Cardano is doing because all they know is that I'm an enthusiast of Cardano. They know that I'm into Cardano. So they'll ask me how Cardano is doing. And when I mention, like one of them in particular, who's a very smart guy, I mentioned to him that this airdrop, and this was months ago, I mentioned to him this airdrop was going to happen, and he didn't even know about it. When I told him he may not get the airdrop if his tokens are on Coinbase, it wasn't even important enough to him to consider self-custodying his tokens, his ADA, to get these midnight tokens. It's like the mental exercise of having to figure out how to self-custody his ADA, even though I've offered a million times to help him do that. It's like it was enough of a mental hurdle that it wasn't even I could tell it wasn't even worth initiating sort of the mental process to do that. So there's a lot of users like that. The point I'm trying to get to is there's a lot of users like that, and they feel like their coins are safe on Coinbase, and they don't even really know what airdrops are. So there you have it. So will more exchanges follow Kraken's example? I don't know, because they kind of get free coins if they don't. So I don't know if they will. I hope they will. I hope airdrops have gotten to the point where they realize a lot of their users are going to complain if they don't get it. And I think that would be, for a lot of these changes, I think that would be the thing that would cause them to actually do the distribution. They're not going to do it altruistically because they love to get the free money, basically. Night will be awesome to see how it changes the space. I'm really excited to see what happens with Night when mainnet launches, and we're getting close. We're getting close, as we discovered in the live stream from Thursday, Friday. Most people probably watched it on Friday. During that live stream, people discovered that there is a countdown timer on the Midnight website now, telling you exactly when the next phase, the scavenger mine, is starting and when pre-registration is going to be. So I'm very excited to see what the scavenger mine looks like, and at the end of the scavenger mine to see what mainnet looks like, and like you put it, see how it changes the space. Sir James, I agree. Wild to be here live, but listening in the future and also at the present. Yeah. It's cool. It's cool to be able to watch this stuff going down in crypto firsthand. It's kind of like, like when Zelle started announced that they were going to, allow stable coins on their rails. That's something that's probably significant to the history of crypto, and especially to this convergence of TradFi and crypto that's going on right now. Okay, Cardano universe. If Trump scores big next Thursday and Powell lowers rates, then we could see. I have no idea. I'll take your word for it. I have no idea what those numbers look like, but yeah, it definitely doesn't seem bad. These don't seem like bad things happening this week. Okay, youth promo. What advice would you give to coin holders when adoption takes over? I suspect banks will first stop transferring funds out of their control. Resistance to adoption. I'm thinking some banks close. Yeah, this is going to be a wild, this is going to be a wild transformation. We've had physical banks, physical traditional banks for a long, long, long time in Western civilization. This has been something that's been with us for a very long time, and all of that going digital, and especially being on the blockchain, it's a wild transformation. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't think it really affects me that much. I basically use I think a lot of us in crypto are kind of, probably kind of the same way. Obviously I'm doing all my, for tax reasons, basically. I'm doing all of my, daily living when I go and buy food at the grocery store. I'm buying it with fiat out of my fiat checking account, but large significant chunk of my assets are on the blockchain, so I don't have a huge chunk of my like personal net worth in fiat. So it'll just for me, it'll just be a change in how I pay for my day-to-day, daily expenditures. I'm sure eventually I'll be buying my groceries with crypto as opposed to fiat. Right now, I'm already happy to get paid in crypto. If I get paid in crypto, I'm totally happy about it. And it just goes toward my, it's basically like a DCA for me. But eventually, if all of my income, if my fiat mining income comes in the form of crypto and I can spend it in crypto, it won't be a big change for me. It'll just be, sort of different plumbing underneath the card I use. Currently, I can't do that because we don't have this de minimis exception. If I buy, if I buy, a bunch of stakes in crypto right now, I have to go calculate my capital gains, which is not worth it. But once that's all over, it won't be a big change for me, honestly. And I think a lot of people in crypto the same, but for a lot of normal people, it's a pretty big change until we have that de minimis exception, and then they won't even notice because they'll just use a card like they use now. Pucky Hawk. Yeah, airdrops are kind of nice. Kind of nice. Kind of a nice thing. I think you'll like them. I think you'll like airdrops. Usis Freetoff says, Night was my first airdrop. Yeah, I mean, we've had other I won't even call them airdrops, but I'll say people have sent things around in Cardano before. Some of them were even scams. Some of them were meaningless and valueless coins you'd never want, and they were airdropped if you had certain other assets in your wallet, things like that. It's been pretty common throughout the history of crypto. Airdrops have kind of been a thing, since sort of the advent of altcoins. So, yeah, I mean, airdrops aren't bad, especially the way Charles has sort of architected these partner chain airdrops. It sort of seems like it's sort of I hear people saying that they think there's going to be sort of like a new partner chain and an airdrop every year, not anyone inside IOG or anything like that, but just normal rank and file people inside the Cardano ecosystem like me and you. I see people like sort of wondering if we might end up getting, like a partner chain every year and an airdrop. That's not bad if the airdropped asset ends up being worth something. So that's the part that we don't really know until it arrives. So we'll see. Okay. Old Man OZ says, I have been transferring money between countries, not big amounts, and the cost is ridiculous. Same goes for using Visa card outside of home country, another area to get to ASAP. Same experience for me. Same exact experience. Transferring money, cross-border transactions, the remittances business, that's obviously a big part of what Zelle is going after. And same, the cost is ridiculous. This is something I've done pretty regularly over the last, decade, especially. And ridiculous cost. Crypto can destroy the traditional rails because it's going to be so much cheaper. And yeah, same thing. Using any kind of a card, outside the home country, again, the fees just ridiculous. Crypto can destroy. So I hope that happens. Let's see. Okay. This is true, Pucky Hawk. We're at the precipice of a thing nobody can predict. I think, yeah, we're at the precipice of a couple of things nobody can predict. So we'll see how this all goes. Zcash is being considered as pro-privacy coin like Night. Actually, it is gaining momentum. I know Charles appreciates Zcash technology. Do you know if Cardano has? No, I don't know anything about any cooperation between Cardano and Zcash. Yeah, I mean, privacy is definitely, we're seeing a lot of mentions of privacy inside crypto, and it's become very obvious why privacy might be the next big trend in crypto. I think China is a big deal. If the White House can wrap this up with Xi on Thursday, the day after getting an announcement from the FOMC, 25 basis point cut, and QT ending, that's going to be a pretty good little 24-hour period for the White House, I think. So we'll see how it all goes down. Nothing's set in stone. Like anything could happen on Wednesday and Thursday, but we'll see. Capital gains are easy. Just put half this to the side, pay taxes, but what, yeah, I mean, it seems that way. It seems that way, but there's a pretty big administrative burden. Like imagine if you have to calculate capital gains every time you buy anything. It seems easy, but if you have to do it every time you buy anything, then it's pretty big administrative burden. Yeah, I think it's so difficult with this White House administration. It's so difficult to predict anything. It's so hard to know if anything's going to happen. Like I feel like both she and Trump could do a podcast together, both guaranteeing that it's going to happen on Thursday morning, and I still won't believe it until I see it. So same thing with the Fed, like the QT thing. I don't know. I'll believe it when it happens. When it happens, that's when I'll feel certain about it. But I don't think anything's certain in this White House in 2025. I think until it actually happens, it's not certain because they flip flop every other day. What do I think about ISO 2022 for banking? I don't know. I haven't looked at that for banking. I actually don't have good enough. I don't have a good enough background on that one for banking. Jordan for America. Let's go. Thank you for joining. Heinous Haggis. What is it going to take for some real liquidity to come into the CNT space? So many early investors have gotten wrecked due to so many projects that have gone nowhere, outright rug pulled on Cardano. I hate to say it, but it's I want to it's like it's easy to localize it to Cardano, but it's really just small cap crypto. This has always been the case with small cap crypto. Back during the 2017 ICO craze, this was really, really apparent. There were such promising projects, and guys would put out, a huge amount of information about what they wanted to do. And some of them were like really good use cases for crypto. And you're like, that's a great use case. I'll throw some dough into that. And you do it. And then they would like, we didn't even have that term back then, rug, but they would rug for, just like run out of money. They would just like pop up and be like, hey, we're just continuing development of this. And, everybody who bought into the ICO would realize like possibly the people running that project never did anything. They just, grabbed the funds and left. They just produced some great white papers and some great, infographics, and they got the money and they were out. But there was a huge amount of that in 2017 during the ICOs. So this has been a small cap crypto thing for a long time. That's why I went so light into CNTs. Like people were actually chastising me last cycle, asking me, why wasn't I into this Cardano native token? Why wasn't I into this one? Why was I putting so little into, why did I give so little attention? And why would I put so little money into this and that? I'm not going to name any names, but very promising projects. I shouldn't even say promising. I should say very interesting projects. Very interesting projects went belly up because you might conceptually ideating, like coming up with concepts, is very different than executing. So, and we've had, crypto is going to be one of those spaces that is full of people who can come up with fascinating ideas. And there are also people who can execute. But the convergence of those two things, like the Venn diagram, when those two things converge, when it's the same person who came up with a great idea or found a great idea and then is also able to execute on it, it's hard for that to coalesce in the same person. Yep. Let's see. Cardano Universe. I don't know I'm not sure what you're referencing there. So sorry. I know I keep picking up on conversations people are having between themselves. I'm just trying to address as many of the comments as I can. Youth promo. Where have you been, Spies? Or you already spoke about it and I missed it. You were missed. Please keep the original star, the original music. Yeah, no, I was in the fiat mines for over 2 years. And I've talked about it quite a bit on the channel. But I was able to escape the fiat mines after being down there in the dark for a long, long time, hating every moment of it. But basically last cycle, I decided during last cycle, there was a lot of extraction going on in the Cardano community. A lot of people a lot of people doing what I was doing, being a commenter on the Cardano space. A lot of people, issued various projects, 10,000 you know, PFP NFTs, and later this cycle, it's been like meme coins. And a lot of people did a lot of things to extract value from the community. And I decided very early on, I mean, it wasn't even a decision. It was just obvious to me that the right thing to do was not to extract, but if if it came to it, I would just go back to the fiat mines. So that's what I did at the end of the last cycle when it was obvious that we were going to go. It was not going to be. It was going to be the same. Same thing we saw in crypto before. That we have these parabolic highs, then these like 90% drawdowns. When it was obvious that that's what was happening in crypto, and we were going to go through another 2 years. The 1 year, famously, people say about crypto. 1 year out of 4, it's the best asset in the world. 1 year out of 4, it's the worst asset in the world. And then the other 2 years, it's just kind of flat and doing nothing. When it was obvious to me that that cycle was perpetuating itself once again, I was like, I knew that I wasn't going to do the extraction thing from the very start. I knew I wouldn't do that. And then I would just go back to the fiat mines if the channel wasn't sustainable on its own. And that's what it turned out to be. The only way to survive full time doing this, the only people who are able to do that in crypto, were largely the people who are doing some kind of extraction, some kind of a heavy extraction, or they're peddling something to the people, watching their channels that I wasn't willing to peddle. I won't name those things, but there were other things, that people did I wasn't willing to do. So I went back to the fiat mines. Anyways, enough about that. I've talked about that enough. So I don't know. I don't have any opinion about those tokens. I don't really have any opinion about those tokens. Oh yeah, this was we all remember that one. All I'll say about that is we all remember that one, which is very true. Oh, okay, interesting. Cardano Universe. Thank you for that news. Grayscale Arca 5 crypto fund launched on New York Stock Exchange last Friday. I actually didn't see that news. I didn't see the actual launch. I was following all the news going on with all these crypto funds, but I actually did not see the launch of that one. Thank you for that. Jay Marie, thank you for joining. Good to see you. Good to see you. Feel free to come anytime. Meld is one that people have been talking about. We've talked about this a little bit on the channel over the last couple of weeks. Many people have mentioned Meld to me. And I've said this before, but it was kind of funny because I sort of mentally wrote off Meld very, very early because it didn't quite rise. It wasn't quite compelling to me from the start. It wasn't compelling enough to me for me to really give it a lot of attention. So after sort of, the very start, after looking at it quite a bit, it didn't really rise to the level that it was compelling enough for me to pay attention. So I just sort of like forgot about Meld. I forgot it existed. And when people recently in the last couple of weeks have been telling me, what's happened to Meld, it was kind of news to me because I didn't pay any attention to it almost since the start. Ooh, Joe Davidson, the most promising project in Cardano for me, aside from Midnight Upcoming, is Infinity Rising. And Infinity Rising is fascinating. I'm so happy that the Cornucopias and now Infinity Rising team has gone from where it started. I'll never forget, I still remember Rob's first video when he was talking about what he wanted to build. There wasn't even a name for it yet. I could be misremembering. It's been a long time, but I remember that very first video when he was talking about making some kind of a game or metaverse or something. where it's gone from then until now is just been this like fascinating thing to watch happen. So I was so glad to see all the recent stuff those guys have gotten so far along. It's awesome to see. Okay. Going light in the CNT space was a good move in hindsight. Thanks for your thoughts on that. Yeah, I tried not to be, I tried not to seem like a wet blanket, but certainly people noticed I was less than enthusiastic about all the CNTs in the last cycle. I talked about a bunch of them because some of them were interesting. Some of them were doing interesting things. So I talked about some of them that were doing interesting things, but yeah, like definitely a lot of people commenting on the Cardano space almost seem to focus on CNTs. And my thing is more like there are going to be some successful CNTs that do wonderful things, but I also think of them as customers of the Cardano network. They are the customers. They have, if the Cardano network, if the base layer, the blockchain is in a lot of ways, it's sort of it's a retail thing, but it's also a B2B thing. And they are the B2B customers of if I like to think of all of us in Cardano, everybody listening to this channel, everybody in the army of spies, because the army of spies is not me, it's all of you plus me. It's all of us together. We're all sort of, the community who owns the Cardano blockchain. And our customers, our B2B customers are the CNT projects. It's way more complicated than that, way more nuanced because, obviously many people in the community are going to make up the community of those CNTs as well. So you can have like these like overlapping fractals of involvement, ownership, enthusiasm. But I'm like the more the better as customers of the blockchain. And some of them will actually be awesome. Some of them will do awesome things that will be exciting and compelling. But even if they're just customers of the blockchain, I'm like happy to have those customers. So I want them to use our blockchain. They're the B2B customers of the blockchain. And some of them will be awesome, some of them won't, but it's sort of like, if you own a dry cleaner, there's guys coming in dry cleaning their suits and you're just happy they're dry cleaning their suits with you and what they do, what business they carry out in those suits. They might suck at it or they might be awesome at it, but your business is to dry clean their suits. So that's a bad example because it sounds like we're talking about, nefarious activities when really I'm not. I'm just saying we're providing some B2B services to those tokens. So absolutely, the government does need to reopen. I hate it. I hate it when this happens. It's like one of the terrible aspects of this form of government. Will there ever be an episode of AOS where someone doesn't ask about Meld? I know Meld comes up. I've been amazed the last 2 weeks how often it comes up because I like it was not something a lot of people covered Meld a lot and it was not something that I was that interested in. So okay, this is kind of interesting. I kind of like this. Meld was my training class to enable me to Spidey sense my way out of getting rooked in Axo. So very interesting commentary. Very interesting. I kind of like it though when people not anything about those two projects in particular, but I do like it. I do like in crypto that we all learn. Like we all kind of do the same things. We all get burnt by the same things, and then we learn from it. So I like that as sort of the crypto community and the Cardano community, we kind of learn from these things. Cardano is high assurance decentralized infrastructure, not a PP for an end user. Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's kind of not an app for an end user. Yeah, that's true. Cardano is infrastructure. The Cardano base layer is infrastructure, that's for sure. And then the projects, many of the projects will be apps for end users, obviously. But yeah, I mean, that's why, it's like people ask me about, meme coins, DeFi apps, you name it, whatever can run on a blockchain. And I'm like, yeah, as a category, I'm glad there are customers. But if you ask me about individual projects, I'm and some of them are compelling to me. Some of them I'm very interested in, but many of them I'm not interested in them. I'm interested in them being a customer of our blockchain. That's my main interest in a lot of them. I'm like, yes, please do a lot of transactions. We will be your vendor of blockchain services. But a lot of them are less compelling to me. So, um, I have not heard anything on lowering crypto taxes for US citizens also yet. Yeah, I would love, obviously, that is like one of the biggest things we would all love in crypto. If some, because there was some rumbling about lower capital gains, a bunch of things like that. And those are the kind of things that I think are like most speculative. It's like getting that would be very difficult. But who knows? Anything's possible. Everything changes with this administration, with the US government in general in 2025. Everything can change from day to day. So anything's possible. And everything that's promised to us could become impossible at any time too. So it's very hard to predict. I'm glad it's not the other way though. I'm glad it's not the anti-crypto army still running things and basically threatening to outlaw crypto, and us just like keeping our fingers crossed that somehow that doesn't happen. I'd much rather we're keeping our fingers crossed that we get like tax breaks on crypto. um oh yeah, Mr. Elweb CODMS, no matter what news is coming out of New York City elections, I find solace in knowing AOL. Oh, thank you. It is wild. Watching what's going on in New York is wild, that's for sure. I've tried not to comment too much on that, too much on those kind of issues. I try to keep it focused lately on crypto, but I do pay a lot of attention to all those things. So I heard something weeks ago about corporations, crypto taxes being lowered, but not yet for the little people. Yeah, I would love for them to make some progress on that. I mean, right now they're just trying to get the market structure bill passed. So I guess we have to wait. We have to wait for that to happen. It is my preferred choice. Me too. D not you. Same thing. Yep. Uchis Fritov says the same thing. Yeah. Cardano needs them to survive. Agreed. Agreed. If there were no dApps, on Cardano, if there were no meme coins, if there were no NFTs, then we wouldn't all be here talking about it. So we need those to survive. What I hope though is that we can transition from all of that. We can transition from all of that to things that are less casino like, transition from that to things that are less speculative, more mainstream, more utility, less gambling. I want more utility, less gambling, right? And it's like even some of the DeFi stuff on paper, it looks like so much utility and so much less gambling. And then you look at the way we execute it, not us in Cardano, but crypto in general, the way we execute stuff, it just, we trend toward gambling in a lot of ways. I mean, stuff that shouldn't even involve the types of gambling that we involve in it. We figure out ways to turn it into gambling, which is not the way I wish we'd go. I feel like this intermediate stage. Like the famous analog here is the internet. What was the early internet, famous for, a lot of the things that fueled a lot of the traffic on the early internet and still to this day are, less savory things. But then the real mainstream utility also came. It also came. So that's what I'm looking forward to with crypto in a lot of ways. Combination of Cardano and NIDE adoption, legal services, driver license, and voting issuer, or any organization that needs to use blockchain technology with privacy. Who's in charge of marketing? So okay. There's a couple different issues there. A lot of things you're talking about touch on state agencies like driver's licenses, voting, a lot of this is impacted very heavily by the states. So, it's in the US at least, it's it just takes it takes a trend among states. It just takes a bunch of states to embrace things like that. And then this wave kind of washes over, the entire US. We saw this with like the end of prohibition. The end of prohibition, you get a first state that's like, we're done with prohibition. And then another state jumps on, then another state, other examples, like women's suffrage, women voting. Back in the day, there's always like a first state that allows these things. And then other states realize that that's the right policy and they all jump on board. So, these kind of things, I think when they finally happen, it kind of surprises you. You're really anxious for it to happen. You're like, this needs to happen. And then it never happens. And finally it does. And you're like, whoa, that's happening right now. So hopefully it's that way with crypto and these kinds of things like driver's licenses, voter identity. Yeah, okay. They need to fix tax rules so people can spend crypto and not just hold it. I agree. One of the most demoralizing things I saw happen in crypto was, and I talk about this probably too much on the channel, but some of you haven't heard this before. So during the block size war in Bitcoin, I was very much on the side of the big blockers because the big blockers were all about what you're describing, using Bitcoin as money, right? Which required we get a little bit more capacity in those blocks. And for a lot of reasons, I can make a whole, because I watched this all go down kind of firsthand on the internet, to the extent you can call that firsthand. That whole civil war, I watched it go down, and I was very sad when the small blockers won and they started saying Bitcoin's not money, it's a store of value. Now that's like 100% the default narrative, but there was a whole civil war fought on the internet over this exact issue, and Bitcoin could have been money. It's not today. It's just accepted that it's not. But I still believe crypto can and should be money. Should be money. People argue, no, it's stable coins, and for some things, definitely true, and that kind of takes care of a big chunk of the the tax problem. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll see. I hold out hope that crypto is going to be money and not something else. Yeah, this is kind of the trickle down economics versus lowering taxes for the regular people kind of argument. And there's like this is the kind of thing economists debate all the time. But yeah, I hope they will lower taxes for all of us regular people. I hope that's what happens. But of course, I am biased. Is it true Cardano is being used somehow to track carbon usage in the UK or something like that? Carbon banking has been one of those use cases that we've talked about in crypto for a long time. Going clear back to that 2017, 2018 period, there were whole blockchains, and this was a big part of the narrative around those blockchains. And has it like manifested in significant real ways in crypto? I mean, there have been like projects and, I'm thinking of one blockchain in particular that had a deal with a certain car manufacturer that still makes pretty big headlines these days. And it's never manifested in the way people were talking about it in 2017, 2018. I think it is a good use case for crypto. I think it's cool. I like it, but it seems like nobody's been able to pull that off in any big, significant, meaningful way. The fact that tax code was written on crypto before any clarity was passed first was the real grift. Agreed. Totally. Yeah. I totally agree with that. It was so funny because we couldn't get Congress back in those days. We couldn't get Congress to address crypto at all, and the IRS would come out with these advisory opinions, like basically guidance all the time. And any way they could make it clear they were going to collect their money, that guidance would be very forthcoming. But could you get a committee in Congress to talk about crypto? Not at all. But when it came to getting their monies, they were happy to address it, at least at the IRS level. Trump does like crypto. That is true. No debating that. He does seem to like crypto. Yes, I exited the fiat mines. I did exit the fiat mines of my own volition. We'll see though. I mean, we'll see what happens. Whether or not this can be sustainable, part of that depends on the crypto prices, mainly the Cardano prices. Whether the Cardano prices will have a big effect on whether this is sustainable and, some other things. But yeah, I will definitely never retire. I am of a generation where retirement is probably not a thing that can happen. Um, for most people, and even for myself, even if Cardano is wildly successful, even if Cardano has a parabolic high, and I'm able to, not round trip it like I did last time, I will never retire. I'll always be working on something. What I'd like to do is just work inside, do this, keep commenting on the crypto space and some other interest wheelhouses I have. I'd like to just keep commenting on those things, but making it sustainable while not doing extractive things that I refuse to do is difficult. So I'm stable, but I didn't ever go say I am retired. That's what Pucky Hawk says. Yep. Yeah, I think I will never stop working on various things. Boots is free to. Thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Got to go to sleep for the Fiamons. Yep, I know that. I know that. I know that feeling. I know that feeling. Mr. Elweb CODMS says retirement for me means death. Yep, I hear you on that. I will never retire. I'll always be working on stuff. Cardano universe is the same thing. I can't retire. Same. Retirement is a myth for our generation. That is largely true. I think crypto is one of the only hopes for retirement for even my generation. I'm a Gen Xer, and even for my generation, retirement is so much more fictional than it was for our parents' generation and their parents' generation. It's a fictional thing. But we have gone for an hour and 11 minutes. And today was kind of I'll call it an anticipatory episode where we're sort of just, anticipating things that are going to happen this week. So I hope a lot of these things happen. And of course, it'll never quite go down exactly like we think it's going to go down. It's 2025, and a lot of this has to do with the US government, which means wild things will happen. Things that were guaranteed will not happen, and things that we didn't think were possible will happen. So hopefully, there's a lot of good things in Cardano's direction this week. And hopefully some of these things we talked about today will go down like they're supposed to. So I hope everybody had a great weekend. I think if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, these are sort of the last gasps of, if you're too far north, these are the last gasps of, the non-frigid temperatures. So I hope everybody got outside and did fun things. I certainly went out and did something wildly fun this weekend, like I have the last couple of weekends. I did some wildly fun things. So I hope everybody else had a great weekend. Let's see some last comments. I believe ADA will be highly sought after once it settles over $1. Stays there since it has awesome liquid staking. Agreed on awesome liquid staking. It'll be great to have a good amount and get those staking rewards. Yep, I love staking in Cardano. Okay, everybody, thank you so much. Thank you so much for joining. Like I said, I hope everybody had a great weekend. I hope you're looking forward to a great week, and I'll talk to you soon.